So don't feel frantic about taking notes tonight. And just kind of a point of order, kind of what we'll do is we'll run through the presentation and then we'll break you guys up into, so the teachers will all be together, presidents will all be together, and treasurers will all be together so that, and we'll be in some of those rooms too, so that you guys can ask questions about the process if you're new or share your wisdom if you've been through it before. We're just kind of here to demystify the whole teacher contract process for you. It's kind of a unique thing to PCPO, and it's been decades of work and kind of working out kinks to figure out a system that's smooth. So we're hoping for to take away any kind of stress or questions tonight by telling you how it all works. So quick introductions. I'm Molly. I'm Communications and Engagement Director here at PCPO. I know most of you, but I see a couple new people. And I've been working with PCPO for, oh gosh, I don't know, a really long time, 9 years, 10 years maybe. But before that, I was at Cedar Hills Kindergarten and Preschool for 11 years with my 4 kiddos. And I'm going to pass it over to Bethany.
Hey everyone, my name is Bethany Campbell. I am our Member Services Coordinator, and this is my second year with PCPO. Before that, my family was at Rose City Neighborhood Preschool in Portland, where both of my kiddos went through that amazing school, and now they're both in elementary school. And yeah, if you have any school support questions, you're usually emailing me. I'm the PCPO info email. So it's nice to see you all here tonight, and I'll send it to Allison.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Warren. I'm the insurance director. I've been at PCPO for 4 years. I have 2 kids that went to Cathedral Park Preschool in North Portland, and they're now 11 and 13. It's good to see all of you here. Do we have any board members?
Yeah, I think Tara and Kathy and maybe Leanne is probably hiding around here somewhere too. I saw Tara come in. Maybe, maybe not.
I'm here.
Okay. Hi.
Sorry.
Who are you?
Hi.
Tell us who you are.
Sorry. My name is Tara Martin. I'm the PCPO board president. This is my third year doing that job and my fourth year on the PCPO board, and I'm also a teacher at Village Preschool.
And I just saw Kathy Vaz. She just joined. She's another one of our board members and a teacher at Westland. Um, I think that's it for right now, Molly, for board members here.
Okay, awesome. Well, we will move toward announcements.
Yeah. So really quickly, while I have your ears, I just wanted to give a plug for our upcoming family education workshop. I'm really excited to be hosting Dr. Larry Cohen. He's going to be talking to us about the wonderful topic of anxiety, both in children and ourselves as parents. This is based off his book called The Opposite of Worry. And I think it'll just be a really great learning opportunity for all of us. So, if your school has already purchased an education package, your all of your families will have free access to this because your school already paid for that fee. If your school is interested in joining for this workshop, and you don't have a package, I'll be sending out a link, but you can do so for $80 gets your whole membership to be able to attend that meeting. So that's in February at 7. And we'll definitely have more information about that in the connections coming up. And then for teachers, our next teacher workshop is here in a couple weeks at the end of January. We're going to be welcoming Kate Goss to talk about inclusion in the classroom through a really practical sense of how it looks like working with children. Yeah, in your preschool setting. She is a fellow co-op teacher in California and is the president of the California Council of Co-ops down there. So we're really excited to be welcoming her as well. And again, that's January 27th at 7 p.m. If your school has already purchased a package, then you have already received an email from me with information about how to attend that meeting. And if you're a teacher who would like to attend and your school hasn't already purchased that package, there's information in this week's connections about how you can join that meeting as well. I'll send it to Allison for insurance.
All right. For those schools that get accident insurance through us, just a quick reminder, our accident policy number did not change with renewal. So that means I didn't send out any replacement materials. The materials you had from last year are still good because we're using the same number. So because it's the new year, it's a good time just to double check that you've got 2 or 3 yellow pockets at your school in a really visible location. The insert should be yellow. If you need any more pockets, feel free to reach out and I'll send them your way. And if you have any parent meetings coming up, it's always a good idea to remind your families of the process if there's an accident at your school. So if there is an accident, please send that yellow pocket with the family. They'll present that to their medical provider at the time of service, and it has all of our insurance information. And then a representative at your school just needs to contact me and I'll get the claims process started.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started for our topic tonight. We wanted to just start the conversation off by discussing the unique role that our co-op teachers hold. I'm sure you can all think about the unique job description of a co-op teacher. And they're not just a preschool teacher, they're not a parent, they're this lovely mix of all the things. So just to get us started and thinking about the amazing things our teachers do, I wanted you to think about these questions. And if you would like to share your response, you can put it in the chat. The first question is, what is a meaningful thing a cooperative teacher or parent provides in the classroom? And that could be like a specific example from your school. So something meaningful that your teacher does. What is something meaningful that your teacher does outside of the classroom? So we know that co-op teachers have so many responsibilities outside of the time that they're with students. So that could be attending board meetings, attending your parent education nights, so many different things that they do outside of the classroom. And then the last question is, besides, sorry, my windows are covering my screen. Besides teaching, what important role does your teacher fill? So those last 2 questions are somewhat similar, but would love to just hear a reflection of what your teachers do that are really meaningful to your school. So if you want to share in the chat examples, that would be great. I'll give you guys a couple minutes. Thank you, Shelby, for your lovely response. Shelby from Gabriel Park says, our teachers are the heart of our school. She is the constant while board members and families change year after year. She knows everything that needs to be done. Yes, co-op teachers hold so much historical knowledge that is essential to board members coming on for the first time. That alone is such a valuable gift that teachers bring. Hancock Mayor says, our teachers are always the first to share wonderful moments with our kids. Yeah, I think it's such a unique role that we get to work alongside our teachers so closely, not just as them being the teachers of our children, but if you do serve on the board, it's almost, you get that coworker kind of relationship too, which is a real gift to be able to get to know one another so much. Another says that our teachers offer a caring adult connection outside of family and friends. Yes, I think about that. It's like the third sphere, right? Like family, friends, and then your co-op teacher is like that other layer of support for families that's so vital. Yeah, another one, weekly updates and emails. Yep, that's really important. Getting to kind of a first look into the classroom. And yeah, such a fountain of knowledge. Yeah, I agree. I think being the holders of all that knowledge about your school is really essential. Well, while you guys are still typing, I just wanted to point out that as we're talking about these contracts that we're writing for our teachers, it really is a lot that we want to include in these contracts to make sure that they are fair and equitable and that they encompass all the things that our teachers do for our schools. And so you can kind of think about the co-op teacher as being a blend, right, of a teacher, family educator, and then often they do provide that director role because they are the keepers of that knowledge. And so making sure that when we are creating their contracts that we're adequately compensating them for all the unique things that they do. Tara is a fellow co-op teacher and also a former co-op parent and the president at PCPO. Tara, do you want to add anything else about kind of that uniqueness that co-op teachers have?
I was thinking about, you know how they have like McAfee has this description and like this range of salary for certain positions. And I was thinking if we tried to do co-op, we wouldn't be able to find a comparable salary range for or a job description for what co-op teachers do. So I love the comments. I think they're so meaningful. But yeah, when you're not in the world of co-ops, it's really hard to describe what the climate is and what our teachers do.
Yeah, so all good things to remember as we're talking about all the details of a contract to kind of keep this big umbrella of understanding the unique role of our co-op teachers. As we're talking about that unique role, there's two resources that I wanted to point everyone to. We have two documents that are super helpful that have been written quite a while ago, but are still very relevant. The first one is called the Cooperative Preschool Teacher, and this is a really great resource that helps explain the responsibilities and differentiation between what a teacher does and what each member of the board does. I think sometimes schools can have a hard time understanding everybody's role and how they fit together, and so that document can be really helpful for understanding where everyone kind of fits together. And then the other document is the 7 Wonders of a Healthy President-Teacher Relationship. And that's great if you're a new president or a veteran president. Again, it talks about how presidents have the unique role of supporting their teachers, and they are, helping support their board, but they also are being the voice of the teacher to their board. So they play this really delicate role of kind of balancing both. So those are two great resources. I believe they're on our website in the member portal, but if they're not, I will include them in our follow-up resource email in the connection. So just keep those in mind as if your school is having some discussions about the relationship and responsibilities. Those are great to reference. All right, I'll send it to you, Molly.
Awesome. Okay. We're going to talk about the actual negotiations process. And don't be intimidated by that word negotiations. I always feel like it needs a rebrand, but it's just conversation, that usually ends in an agreement. So, but nevertheless, we kind of have some goals that we've identified for that process. And so on the PCPO side, so, our job is to support the work that you guys are doing. And that includes your teachers and your board. So all of you. And we, as an organization, really do recognize the uniqueness of a cooperative teacher as a professional educator. And so because of that, we do help advocate for fair and professional compensation unique to that role. We also know that your boards are rotating and that you guys are volunteers. And so that's why we're here to kind of try to equip you, because we know you're not HR professionals. Maybe some of you are, but I would guess most of you aren't. And so those are kind of the goals surrounding the materials that we're going to go over tonight. So contract negotiations are conversations. It's not a top down. It's not a CEO here. We're presenting you. This is it, period. It's really more of a conversation back and forth between the staff and whoever's on your contract committee. And we'll talk about committees in a little while. But the goal is just really to reestablish an agreed upon agreement of responsibilities and compensation for, as we've identified now, your school's greatest asset, which is your teacher. It's always best if a school, and a teacher are on the same page. And so every year we just say, let's revisit the agreement and find out if it's working for everybody. Sometimes we need to make some adjustments. And so we value the process of consensus decision making, just like we teach in terms of running your board meetings. So if you just think of the spirit of that when you're approaching these meetings, it can be really helpful. Like, we're not switching all of a sudden into corporate world and like making everything, scary and I have to go in and change and be like someone's boss and hand them this thing. It's like, no, it's still a conversation. And so we don't want people to get intimidated, I guess is what I'm saying by the process. It's still a co-op. We're still a team, very much a team together, just having a conversation in order to treat our teachers like the professionals that they are and give them a professional contract. Some are really easy. Some schools' contracts have been fine-tuned over decades, and it's literally just switching a few numbers, asking the teacher if they think it's working for them, and it takes 20 minutes. Others take more time, or maybe roles have changed at your school, duties have changed. Maybe you're going through a transition at your school with class size or additional responsibilities with moving to a new building, and things need to be worked out in terms of compensation. It's every year is different. And so we're just hoping that everyone comes to the table with the best interest of the school and the teacher at heart during the process. So you are going to get emailed out to you a bunch of materials that will help you walk through this. It has guidelines, recommendations, goals, and then Allison's gonna let you know about the best part of the packet in a little while that's gonna make it so easy for you. But just know that compensation is different between schools and teachers and experience and size and all of that. The numbers we're going to go over in a few minutes are our recommendations. They're recommended minimums for salary for your teacher. They're not absolutes. We can't tell you what to do, but this is just based on kind of data and a merit scale that we've established over, like I said, gosh, decades of doing this work. Just some general things to keep in mind when you're going over a teacher contract. And most of you should have examples from last year. And so these are good things to flag if these are not in there. If you're starting from scratch, we can give you examples of contracts also, or if you feel like your contract is really deficient, or if you're a teacher that notices that maybe you want something done differently, or on the other side, reach out to us because we can help you individually also. But some basics are that we recommend you pay teachers an annual salary versus hourly. That you have a timeline that's understood by everybody in terms of the timeline for this. When are the meetings going to be? When will they be finished? We recommend you start now in January, and that you do not tie your compensation to enrollment. And I know that's really difficult and kind of hairy, and we can talk to you more offline about that. But teachers, we can't be like having their salary go up and down like this, right? Imagine if that was your life, right? That would be really unsettling. And so we always say the reason we say to figure out the teacher's salary as one of the first steps in your budget is because then you can budget around it, and you might have to make adjustments to tuition or fundraising or things like that. But teachers' salary ideally should not be commensurate on enrollment. We recommend keeping a personnel file for employees. Those are confidential files that would be accessible however you keep your files with the people that are privy only necessary, like the contract committee. Maybe that's your president and treasurer, and maybe a couple other people. But keep those so that you can pass them on to the next leader that handles that process. Also, if you do come up against this merit scale and realize that your school is paying significantly under the recommendations, we just recommend pulling a group together that can figure out a long-range plan for your school in order to be able to become more fiscally healthy so that you can compensate your teacher at a way that is in that kind of professional range. And then we also don't recommend bonuses. We recommend you tie their compensation into their regular contract. Bonuses are taxed really heavily. And again, we just recommend having everything set out in the actual contract. Other things that your contract might include would be language about who will negotiate the next contract. So who's on that committee? We've heard from schools before that that's not clear, and so then the next administration comes in and there's questions. So making that really clear. And then also the conflict resolution procedure. If you do have a personnel file, it's nice to just throw that in there so that anyone coming in after that has that information. It's just good to have, if something arises or there become disagreements during the process, to know kind of like, oh, what do we do now? So, yeah, go ahead.
It's really important that your school has a contract negotiation process written out. If your school doesn't have that, we highly recommend that you put something together. I know I was at a school where we didn't have it, and it's really tricky when a new board comes in and they just don't know how this has been done before, what the steps are, who's involved with it. So definitely put that together if it's not something your school already has. And typically, the contract negotiation process involves a committee. Often it's a 3-person committee with a president, treasurer, and a teacher liaison, but you'll want to check if you have that listed out in your handbook or bylaws or in that negotiation process checklist that you have. So the teacher liaison would be a mutually agreed upon person that's either one of your member families or an alumni. And it's really important that everyone on the committee knows about the financial situation of the school. This is going to be so helpful when you're looking at the numbers, that people are already familiar with your budget from last year and can help think that through as a team. And then, unlike the corporate world, the teacher in this contract negotiation process might serve as an advisor on the committee for things like the process and the job responsibilities. And then once the committee reaches an agreement with the teacher, the executive board will vote to approve the contract. And then as part of your procedures, it's important to have the timeline. Molly mentioned earlier that now is the time to be starting. And you want to make sure that your contract is finished before you're working on your budget. So if you're starting now, you'll be spending the next few months with maybe some back and forth negotiations. And then hopefully you have that contract finalized in the spring before the school year ends, and you can plug those numbers into your budget and work from there to finalize your budget. When you come to the contract negotiation process, it's important that everyone on your committee is prepared. So read through the packet, have everyone read through the packet, be familiar with it. The president and treasurer might take a look at the budget and look at some scenarios from the budget from last year and what it might look like if the teacher's salary is raised different amounts and what that looks like for your budget. And then come to the meetings with that information to share. And the more prepared you are, the smoother the whole process is going to go. So definitely recommend preparing for those meetings.
Okay, so we're going to move on to what exactly goes in a contract. And this is where it's going to get a little dense. So again, don't worry. This will be emailed out to you, and I'll try to keep it as simple as possible, but it is kind of a lot of information. So let us begin. So a contract should clearly outline responsibilities, expectations, and compensation. It's really, in some ways, that's actually kind of simple, but let's keep going and we'll break each one down a little further. So responsibilities would be things like, how many days does your teacher work a week? Do you expect them to be here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every day? Be good to mention that, and which day of the year that starts and ends. This can get kind of unclear with setup and stuff like that. So make sure that you indicate exactly which day you're asking and agreeing to have the teacher report to the building, and when is the last day that they are done with their contract for the year. What time they need to be there in the morning, and what the departure time would be. And then any other additional expectations like trainings, how many board meetings do they need to attend? Are they running your parent education? Are they not? How many parent conferences a year? Things like that. Home visits would be another thing on there also. And then expectations, this would be things like, we require teachers to be CPR first aid certified. Do you do parent conferences at your school? What's the professional development expectation each year? Again, board meetings. And then how do you want to handle communication? This is something that's pretty important. Some teachers, for example, don't really want to be getting text messages from their parents at midnight. So it might be good to just indicate like how the flow of communication is going to go between the school and the teacher. And then compensation, salary, obviously how much is it paid over 12 months, 9 months? Are they getting paid on the first of the month, twice a month? Just make that all really clear. What's the reimbursement procedure if the teacher has to buy supplies and get a reimbursement. Any other contingencies, special circumstances, benefits? These, you guys have so many things you've shared with us. I'm not going to go into all of them right now, but there's lots of things others that schools might offer. And so just, you want to put everything in here. So it's really, really, really clear. We encourage schools to provide the continuing education funds. So making sure that that's clear in the contract so the teacher, doesn't think they're paying for those themselves. And then if there's any professional membership dues that are paid by the school, it's important to mention that too. And then leave policy. We are going to go into the leave policy in a little more depth in a minute. Right now, apparently. So, okay. So leave policies come up a lot, especially lately. And so this is just really, and we can give you examples, but it's really, really awesome if you can have this in the contract. Just like, what is your policy if the teacher needs to take leave or take care of a loved one that's ill or needs to, take a leave for any reason? Some schools have written like long-term leave policy and short-term leave policy. Some have a certain amount of sick and personal leave time that rolls over, some don't. Just having that really clear in your contract is really important. It's actually law in Oregon and Washington. So if you don't have one, make sure you reach out to us and we'll get one, get an example for you. And there's a bunch of information on this in your packet also. A section for benefits. Again, I'm not going to go into a ton of depth on this. It really varies between schools, but any sort of extra benefit you give beyond compensation is important to have written out in the contract. Oh, Bethany, do you want to talk about the IRA really quick?
Sure. It just recently came to our attention that about the Simple IRA, which is an option for small businesses to be able to provide a little bit of compensation for to an IRA account for their employees. And so if your school does that, maybe for your teachers, it's important to remember that if you offer that employer contribution to one employee, you have to offer it to all of your employees, even if they don't choose to participate with the contribution from their paycheck. So that becomes really important if you have educational assistants. So maybe you've offered this to your lead teachers for a long time, but if you're hiring teachers aides, if they've worked for your school for at least 2 years and have made over $5,000, then you also need to offer this benefit to them. So tonight we're really just covering lead teacher contracts, but I know a lot of schools are hiring assistants. And so as you are developing those contracts, using this as a model can be helpful just to make sure that you're kind of covering all of your bases. So just wanted to make that announcement for any schools that might have assistants and who might also be offering this benefit to their teachers.
Thank you. Okay, passing it along.
All right, so now that we know what goes in a contract and kind of how to set it up, another resource that we want to offer you is a way to try to kind of compare different compensation across PCPO schools. So every year we ask for presidents, treasurers, or teachers to complete a survey that helps us gather the information of what kind of teacher salaries are looking like across the board. And thank you to all of the schools that did participate. The more schools we have participate, the more data we have, and it helps us get a better picture. This year, we had 13 schools submit a response, and this is based on 17 teachers, which only represents about 24% of all of PCPO teachers. So when you're looking at this data, it's important to kind of remember that it is a small subsection. I also believe that most of the schools that responded this year are in Oregon, so keep that in mind. But that being said, it can still be helpful to kind of look at this as a big picture in regards to how your contract might compare. So we'll get into the details. I'll let Allison kind of show you some of the specifics.
Thanks, Bethany. So just a few of the things that we noted from the surveys. One of the things that we looked at was the length of the school year. So we put together some charts here. You can see the dots in September that correspond to the first day of school, and then the dots in May and June that correspond to the last day of school. So the length of school varies by a little bit. It varied from 37 to 40 weeks, with the average length being 38 weeks. The majority of schools start just after Labor Day, but then the end date seems to be a little bit more varied among schools. And the salary. So teachers reported their annual salary, and every teacher is teaching a different number of sessions per week. So we thought it would be helpful to break up the salaries based on one session per week. So it's a little bit easier to compare salaries. So that's what we've done here. The average PCPO teacher salary was $9,209 per year. That's based on one session per week. And there was a high of $12,481 and a low of $4,075. So you can see there is a huge variance. And of course, this doesn't take into account whether the teacher's been there for 1 year or for 20 years. It also doesn't take into account what's included in the contract in terms of job duties, because that can vary a fair bit. And we don't know what the merit scale level is based on or it's not based on the merit scale levels here. Of course, that changes things. But it just gives you an idea of the range. So that can sometimes be helpful to see. Let's see, there was a question there. Is one session, 1 day of school, or one class group for the whole week? So one session would be one session, 1 day of school. Yeah. And then we looked at sick leave. So sick leave and paid time off. All but one of the teachers that responded received paid sick leave or paid time off. And then most teachers are not getting paid out for leave at the end of the year. And then other types of compensation that are offered to teachers. So professional development, I think there was a question about professional development. 76% of the schools that responded to this survey are giving their teachers some sort of professional development amount. 41% retirement, and then 18% medical insurance.
Allison, the question was a little bit more specific. Do we have any data on how much teachers are asking for professional membership dues, not just the development, but if they're part of a professional organization, do we collect any information on how much that is?
I don't think we did in the salary survey. Do you remember? I don't think so.
Can't off the top of my head, but I'll try to look and see if we have some more information so I can answer your question.
Yeah. And then in terms of the amount that teachers receive for professional development, oh, sorry, I see a little typo there in development. It ranges a fair bit. We had one teacher that reported 1,000, and then a couple of teachers were at 100, and then a few were in between there, and then 6 teachers were not specified. So they didn't say what the amount was in their contract for professional development.
All right. So the next part of your contract is kind of starting to develop what your salary and what you're going to offer as a salary for your teachers. And so every year, PCPO develops our own salary recommendations, a minimum salary recommendation. So I'm going to just walk you through how we get to those numbers, and want to remind you again that this is where that packet will become really helpful. This is, I'll try to put the link to the packet in the chat so everyone can have it tonight, but I'll also, again, it'll be in your follow-up resources, but the packet kind of goes into a broader explanation for how we establish these salary recommendations, but I'll walk you through some of the info tonight. So again, like we've said, it's really hard for schools to compare across one another because there are so many differences into responsibilities that you ask your teachers to do. And so because of that, we have created a base rate and we update it every year. And it's important that you adapt our recommendations to fit your school's contract. So making sure that it includes, all of those extra duties and responsibilities. Something to be aware of is that we have a salary calculator tool that we'll be sharing with you so that you can put in the session, that the number of sessions your teachers work, the number of hours per session, and it will help calculate this for your school's numbers. So don't feel overwhelmed by all of these numbers tonight. The calculator tool is really helpful as you're diving into this for your own teachers. And Tara spoke to this earlier, that it is just so hard to compare our co-op teachers to conventional preschool teachers. So, if you were to look at kind of a salary range, it's really hard to know where our teachers fall. And so just remembering that, those admin duties, all the board meetings, all of the parent education meetings that they do, they really can act like a director of your school sometimes. And so again, it's just really hard to compare what they do to maybe another teacher who has their same seniority level at a different preschool that is in a co-op. So important to keep that in mind. So one of the tools we use to help establish that minimum salary is the merit scale, which it's a tool that PCPO has been recommending for the last 50 years. Molly informed me today. I didn't know it was that aged, but it still works. So the way the merit scale works is you should be asking your teachers to complete a merit scale every year because it tracks their growing experience and their growing learning as a professional. So one half of the merit scale asks them to state the number of years they've worked at a co-op, how many years have they been a teacher, or those years as a co-op parent. They get kind of basically credit for all of the ways that they've been involved in a co-op or a preschool. And that's one half. The other half of the merit scale is the academic portion where they're able to show what professional development and continuing education they've completed. As we know, it's really important to continue learning in your job, and especially if your teacher has a license, they need to continue education in order to keep that license. And just as a reminder to you teachers, all of our PCPO teacher workshops receive credit for that. So you can be adding that to your merit scale this year, as well as if you need to show documentation of that continuing education for your license, you can use all of the PCPO workshops. They're all certified. So after the teacher fills out that portion of the merit scale, it leaves them with a score. And that score then directly correlates to what their minimum salary should be. So it's really helpful to have a new merit scale every year for your teachers, as they will be moving up that scale each year as they increase their experience in their education. So here you can see how that merit scale correlates to this year's salary recommendations. Again, this table is in your packet, and these numbers get adjusted every year to account for a cost of living increase as well as a 2% step increase. We calculate the cost of living using the Bureau of Labor website for the Pacific Northwest region. And so this year, they're recommending a 2.9% cost of living increase. So all of these numbers have been adjusted for that from last year's recommendations. Let's see, is this my slide?
I think this is mine, Bethany.
Yeah.
All right, so just a reminder, the salary recommendations are based on the assumption that your teacher's spending the same amount of time doing outside class activities as they are doing in-class activities. So as Bethany mentioned, those outside class activities can be planning, parent communications, board and parent meetings, school events, lots of different things. And then the step increases. So Bethany talked about the cost of living increase. PCPO also recommends an annual step increase of at least 2%. So this would be if you have a teacher that's been at a merit level for several years, we recommend that you up the salary by at least 2% each year to slowly bring them up to the next merit level. This helps so that when they're going to that next merit level, you don't have to do a huge increase all at once if you do a little bit each year leading up to it.
I can take this one 'cause I think we're almost at the end.
Yeah.
This was a great slide contributed to us by one of our ex-staff members and just wisdom over the years of things that people have used to appreciate teachers. And so we just thought we'd share some fun things that schools have done to show appreciation to teachers beyond their compensation. Meal trains during conferences or beginning of the end of school year. Some people, if they have like a beach house or a vacation property, they've gifted that to the teacher to use 1 week of the year. Someone did a pie a month. That's amazing. Coffee and tea deliveries, I'm sure, are always appreciated. And then, of course, notes of gratitude. So have fun with it and just remember that you're in a unique community. Before we break out, I think, do we want to open the floor for a few questions? And then we'll definitely have time for questions in the breakouts too, but your packet will have all this information in it too. So don't think you have to remember everything, but if anyone wants to have some questions for the whole group, we can do that at this time. And then we're going to switch to breakouts. So if you can make sure your position is in front of your name, teacher, president, treasurer, so that we can get you sorted where you need to go. But we can open the floor for some general questions, I think, unless Bethany or Allison, you have anything else before that.
No, Molly, I was just going to say we did have one quick question that's a good for the whole group kind of question. Does PCPO recommend the step increase as well as the cost of living increase? Do you want to speak to that, either Allison or Molly?
It is both. Allison could probably answer this in more depth than I can. But yeah, there's a cost of living, and then we recommend, I think it's a 2%, right? Climb, Allison?
Yeah.
Every year. Yeah.
The merit numbers that Bethany shared, that includes the cost of living increase. But then we do recommend that 2% step increase as well if someone has been at their merit level, they're staying at their same merit level. That helps kind of move them forward to the next merit level.
Does that make sense? So we have like all these different steps. And so to avoid all of a sudden going and you're doing the calculation and you're like, oh, my teacher was at a step 3, now they're at a step 4, and it's like feels like a big jump in your budgeting. If you just gradually add that 2% on, it makes it so that it's not as much of a jump, if that makes sense. So yes, those are two different things to clarify.
Seems there are a couple other questions that might. Someone asked us one session, 1 day of school, or one class group for the whole week. So one session is 2.5 to 4 hour session with kids.
And that's where the calculator will become really handy, because then you can take this number and it walks you through how to adjust for a teacher who works 3 2.5-hour sessions or 3 3-hour sessions a week. It'll help you factor that in, as well as for how long your school year is.
Someone asked about recommended amount for professional membership dues. Oh gosh, I bet that varies a lot. I don't know if anyone at a school wants to answer that, how much they do. I've seen a huge variety. So
but this is dues, and dues are set by who you're joining, like OEYC and NAEYC. So, I mean,
yeah, a lot of times
join at least one group. Some might have 2 groups or more that they want to join, but
yeah, and those groups are usually like what, Kathy, $100 or $200 a year?
Yeah, at the most.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I ask a quick question verbally? Is that okay? Or do you want me to put it in the chat?
No, you're fine.
So I might understand. So this would be multiplied then by the number of, or calculated out by based on, this is 2.5 hours per week. And so for our our teacher that teaches 2.5 hour sessions weekly, your recommendation is that we should only be paying her less than $8,000 annually? She's over 20,000, and that feels like very little considering her level of responsibility. Like,
Well, it would depend on her merit level.
Yeah, I think the calculator will help you in that. So no, it would
okay,
be more than that, but
okay,
it's based on how many sessions she's doing per week. So I'll plug the calculator in, and then we can talk about it more in the breakout sessions too. We can actually go through with the calculator and take a look.
But you can
and we're
pay
not gonna,
more.
yeah,
You
we're
can pay
paying more.
more
We're
than
not going to
these
pay
are
less.
I
minimums.
don't think,
Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say, this is showing an example of a 1 2.5 session a
Mhm.
week, and you're saying, yeah, and it depends on the merit level and a bunch of other things in there. So I would bet, yeah, like she said, I would just go into the calculator.
Yeah, and the packet has a couple examples of that as well. And you can see that once you calculate it out for the whole year and the number of weeks, it's not this number. This is just kind of your basic.
Oh yeah, this is not yeah.
Yeah.
Does the calculator come in a spreadsheet that we're able to plug stuff into?
Yeah.
Yep, and I'll put it in the chat here.
Because I see the packet. I appreciate that. That's been something we've reached for a couple of times.
The calculator is incredible.
Yeah,
It will
it's
do it
really
all for
handy.
you.
Yes.
Right, there's one more question in the chat. What is the common practice for paid time off when a teacher needs to start an hour late in their shift or leave an hour earlier for an appointment, etc.? We currently require teachers to take the whole day off to simplify the process, but are there recommendations for how to do this and allow teachers the flexibility for taking only an hour off versus, the whole day? We don't have anything specific in our policy about recommending for that. I think it probably is based on what you as a school are willing to do in terms of flexibility. It does get tricky when you start going to the hourly level, is what I would say. Allison or Molly or Kathy, do you have anything else?
It can be, but I understand too. I know like of schools with teachers that are doing a 4 hour kindergarten and stuff and how they might want to be there for most of the day. I would, you could, as long as someone's willing to track it as a percentage, like if they have 5 sick days and they take a quarter of a day, I mean, if you guys are willing to do that and accommodate for that, I think that's fine as long as it's specific in the contract as to how that's handled is what I would say about like everything. Just make it really, really clear.
I'm just looking at the salary calculator, and I think I am going to wait to share it because I want to make sure the numbers stay the same. So I think we'll send it out afterwards, but we can use it in the treasurer breakout session to plug numbers in to show you. But I'll send out the final version for you to play with afterwards, just so none of the numbers get messed up along the way, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Is the link to the packet working though for everyone? I think it's the first link that Allison shared.
I think the